And here we are. We're live. Welcome, everybody. How are you doing? How are you doing?
All good, all
All
good.
good.
So we've got, I'll go around the corners again. We've got Randall. Say hi.
Say
Carl.
hi.
Hi.
Neil.
Hello, everyone.
There you go. All right. We did the round table. So, this is a big topic, state of the channel in these economic times. And full disclosure, I'm not an economist. And anybody else with a economist, you could put up your hand. However, the interesting thing is I heard Warren, what's the guy's name? Warren Buffett, right?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
Warren Buffett. Yeah. He said about a thing about economists. You've never met a very, very rich economist before. That's because their advice is not quite as it should be. They do get things wrong, but
tuned as they could be.
exactly. So I want to start this by saying having a little bit of a fun thing. I wanted everybody to kind of rate what you feel on a scale of 1 to 10. We'll go around the table here. What do you think is the state of the channel as you see it now? And then we'll do the same exercise at the end of this conversation. So rate between 1 to 10, right? What do you think is the state of the channel? 10 being awesome and 1 being terrible. Randall, we'll go with you first.
Yeah, I'm going to be a little bit on the positive side. I'm going to give it a 6, but I'm going to say that a lot of channel partners have not really hit the hard times yet, and I think they're coming really soon. So I have a feeling that 6 is going to be hit really hard in the very near future.
So you're an optimist, pessimist. All right. Neil, how do you rate it?
Well, I'm going to be slightly more optimistic than Randall. I'm going to go for a 7 because I think that in the growth areas of the channel, things are going very well and we're seeing rapid growth there. But there's still a larger sector of that channel which has not made the adjustments to kind of like the new world of working. So I'm going with a 7.
Carl, what do you think?
I'm going to go with 7 as well. I think both of you, Randall and Neil, made some good points there. I think there is something coming which is going to affect that score. IT generally tends to be slower to react to a recession than other product areas. But I think if you, again, looking at the growth areas, there's a lot to be optimistic about. But obviously, we've got supply shortages, silicon shortages. We've got issues with increased cost of shipping, logistics, etc. So I'm going to say 7. It could, if it was cloud and software and security and so on, it would index up a bit more. But I think overall 7.
Good. Well, I'm going to rate it a 9 because I'm just an eternal optimist, right? Because you can always fix the problems. But let's dig into this and then let's see how we could change your thoughts over this 1-hour session. So welcome, everybody. We're talking about the state of the channel in these economic times. And, I just want to cap this off or start us off by saying there's this sense of a recession in the air, right? A lot of people are talking about it. Inflation is like a 40-year high, right? Interest rates is on the rise. Gas prices gone wild. The Russian war is going on again. COVID is definitely still alive and well, but humans have sort of had enough. Unemployment is an all-time low. Hiring talent is very, very difficult. The supply chain is broken, right? Even though they're trying to put some Band-Aid solutions. And then again, corporate profits are up in general. Air travel is pure madness now because everybody is traveling. I don't know if you ever tried renting a car, but try renting a car, try buying a car, right? They're all selling at list pricing now, right? And above, right? And then, of course, there's this great resignation we've been dealing with for the last year, where employees are looking for a bit of a work-life balance. The housing market is unstable. Prices is dropping a bit, but then the supply is not enough for the demand. Seems like we're still missing millions of homes for people. On the good side, Top Gun got people back into the cinemas. So, who knows where the economy is going to go? Maybe it's those guys going to pull us out. So, you could continue adding to this list and make it even, more complicated. In other words, there's a lot of moving parts here. All right. And the question is, where are we headed as a channel? So I just want to have everybody kind of have a bit of an opening statement. And maybe Carla, start with you. What do you think is happening right now the list, but also what else or what other things you think we should be concerned about?
Okay, so on the optimistic side, you're still seeing sales at the premium end. Okay, so though, and what I mean by premium end, I mean average selling price. So there's the average selling price, the amount of product that's being sold at high prices is still continuing. And if you look across Kantar, GfK, Ipsos, and IOI, sorry, you'll look at those and they'll all show you that there's that trend towards a higher price. Now, what does that mean in the sense of, in consumer space, that it means obviously that the lower price product, the volume in the market is starting to dry up very much like it did 2008, 2009 with the banking crisis. So the volume is there. So people are considering their purchases are far more now. There is no, slap happy, go out there and spend money post-COVID, the haze of being back out there. Okay, we all went out, we're all doing that. But, you see some of the news out regards entertainment, looking at drinking and cinema and so on, that's starting to plateau a bit at the moment. But if you look at the prices, we're seeing a move towards the higher prices. Now, that's within the consumer space. Then if you look in the business space, you're seeing a similar trend. Now, that means percentage-wise, well, pound note-wise, based on your percentages, you can potential to make more money on kit, tin, when you can get it, or the alternative challenger brands that are available. The other part of it is looking at the sales cycle. Because we're moving to those higher prices, then it's a more considered procurement. So it's not kicking tires as much. It's more about the fact I need this kit. It's going to happen. I've evaluated the ROI. I need to go and do it. So in one sense, it's like a positive because it's taking away some of the waste in the sense of interest and inquiries. But on the other side, it means that there's less deals potentially going to happen. But those deals that you do based on percentages will hopefully make you a bit more money, pound note, dollar, and euro. Now, that's one side of it. And the other side of it, of course, is that we saw the recession in 2008, 2009. IT took about 18 months to kick in as far as the real big reaction to what happened. So when consumer confidence went down, we'll talk about that in a bit, but the IT took about 18 months to react. The trouble is this time is that, and I'm not going to be all doom and gloom today, but the trouble is this time is that we also have the supply shortages as well. But that's great if you're in the services industry. That's great if you're in software and so on. And it's great if you're sweating the hardware, you're doing asset management, you're sweating the hardware out there and utilizing it more and being a leader in making that hardware work more for the company. But if you're selling a lot of tin, then you've got potential issues on there. But like I say, I think there's some positive and negative. I am going to say that the media focus a lot of their attention on scaring the bejesus out of us all and saying that we are going into recession. We are, if we do what we did in 2008, 2009, we'll talk ourselves into recession way before we were going to do it.
This recession thing, just to kind of like double click on it a little bit here, right? I mean, we've got unemployment at the lowest rates ever, right? People can't even hire people. There's for hire signs everywhere, right? You've got corporate profits are way up in many, many, many companies. You got the housing supply, still there. It's not like people don't need homes, right? Interest rates are still relatively low, even though it's going up, right? Cars, like you said, cars are being sold at list plus, right? Travel is way up. People have saved a lot of money over the last years, right? Work from anywhere is making everybody save money as well. There's a lot of new dynamics happening right now. For me, it's almost like, in your GPS, when you take a wrong turn, it says recalculating, recalculating. I think we're sort of recalculating in a new version of the economy. So, that's sort of the thing. So it's kind of weird that people say we're going into a recession, yet, there's a lot of things that's saying like, no, not really. All right. But we'll dig into this. Randall, what do you want to say?
Well, first, I want to bring out a comment from our comment section from Tamara Bush saying how Walmart and Shopify expressed some concerns this morning. So I was looking it up, and yes, Walmart slid 7% in the stock market because of their outlook. They cut their outlook, and Shopify, the shares dropped 15.8%. and it's laying off about 1,000 employees. So some of the big companies are maybe seeing something that we're not seeing, and that might be a warning light to prepare.
But look,
I don't know what that preparation means, but it is real.
Look at, I mean, if you look at those two companies alone, Walmart serve lower disposable income families. Obviously, they have a broad spectrum. They have lower disposable income families, the same way that we have with, for example, Argos in the UK, as or Asda, the supermarket. They are obviously very bargain led, very looking to try and get best deals on product, which absolutely validate that. Their disposable income is being challenged now because gas, electric, fuel costs, inflation. We are seeing that already. This is nearly 10%. Can be tracking at 10% in the UK. You're right about what you say about the positives, the fact that low employment, but that's all very well and good. But the fact of the matter is that includes a huge swathe of people on 0-hour contracts, or on contracts that they haven't seen a pay review in some time, and the cost of living keeps going up. I mean, just within the UK, we have an issue, which is the energy prices, because of the price cap that's imposed by government. That's going to go up again in October. So it feels like when you look at some of the indexes there, it feels like it shouldn't be that bad. But when you look at the shopping basket, when you go into a supermarket within the consumer space, you buy the products you're buying, there's less of it. You're achieving less. There's less quality and less density and all of that. So premium brands are starting to see it. And I did a podcast with Kraft Heinz last week, in fact, and we were talking about the fact of recession and the impact, etc. They are even being forced at looking at how they package the product, but they're seeing own brands starting to grow within the supermarket space. So it is right that we should be positive about certain things, but there's a lot of underlying issue there that's causing us problems.
Neil, what do you think?
I mean, everyone's saying sensible things. I think what's unusual is, I think you're right, Julian, with the recalculating analogy, because the bottom line is that, again, sticking with the UK market, because that's where our model based, is if you think about what's going on with inflation, it's not being driven by anything which anybody in the country can actually do anything about, because we're now seeing the results of a true globalized world, which is there's a war. The war is going to affect global oil prices for everybody. So there's no way around it. So I think there is a recalibration which has to take place, because the traditional mechanism of ramping up interest rates, that's not going to stop the inflation of our UK utility bills. Gas and electric is going to go up 60% again in October, November, and probably by the same amount in April as well. So it's kind of like, and what can the government do? Absolutely nothing. So there's this kind of like backdrop, which is recalculating. We've never been here before. And then we look at the channel. And what I'm a great believer in is that adversity always creates opportunity. And like Cole said, at the moment, if you're in particular sectors and there's a hardware delay and you're sweating your existing assets, that's where you want to be. The trick always is one of my old coaches used to say, if you try to jump on the bandwagon, you've already missed it, because you can see it. So it's like, where do we go next? So people are aware of the growing markets within cybersecurity and those type of areas today. They are going to continue to see growth. I think we did a chat, I think the last one we did, which was on automation processes. Automation processes are going to continue to be a big driver because they increase profitability of business. But what's next? So I think that's the real opportunity, to review your entire stack and go, where do we go next after that within maybe our particular niche? So I'm a great believer that, I think it's going to be challenging. This entire going into recession thing, I think we talked ourselves into it last time. I think you're right there, Cole. And I think we probably will do it again, because it's what we'd love to do. The UK at the moment is brilliant because we're throwing out another Prime Minister. So we've got another 3-4 months where they will argue with each other. And so nobody's actually talking about the big issues in the UK, because it's not where the politicians are looking. So it's all fun and games here.
Yeah, traders, if you look at the people who are shorting and people who are trading, they don't make money on a flat, even, stable market. All right, they just don't. So, and if you look at the organizations that we're in, and I'm going to get a bit conspiracy theory here, but the fact of the matter is talking ourselves into recession means somebody's always making money. Okay. And that's usually the people that have the money who can then risk, or then quite often not risk their money, risk other people's money. But there's always that. So the point you make about talking us into a recession, I believe in that exactly. And quite often, I said through the last one is that you need to be selling through a recession rather than bunkering down a recession. So your point about what's next, sweating assets is, what you've got in place, making it work harder for you, AI, automation, all the types of things you talked about before. But what's the next thing? What's the rebound? What's the thing that's going to come back on the back of that? This is the time to be investing and researching those types of phenomena, that type of innovation. But I say again, I mean, consumer confidence -41 in the UK, across Europe ranging from -25 to -36. That's just within consumer confidence. Business confidence, depending on the industry, going from -5 down to -29. Okay, this is already happening, and the press, media will obviously perpetuate more of that and potentially extend it. But right now, there are people who are feeling it, absolutely. The people who haven't got the hours, the guaranteed hours, those who haven't had pay rises. And let's be honest, we've just come out of COVID, and all the people that were there, who were doing all the work for us, are the ones that are part of the parcel of the people that are suffering from it. So, the NHSs, the medical staff, the people who go out looking after our children when we go to work, the people who clean the streets and things like that. There's a lot of people out there who are really suffering at the moment, and they are going to add to the fact that we are in this position where we don't feel there's a lot of confidence going forward. But
the same thing is happening here, I believe, as well in North America, right? It's a mirror reflection of what's happening across the West. There's challenges, and we're just sort of trying to navigate, recalculating through this new world we're living in, and that doesn't there's so many other things happening, like COVID is really not gone yet, right? And complexities with that, long COVID, and there's an interesting thing, pulling this back into the channel community. Now, we've talked a little bit about general terms about the things that's affecting how the economy is and so on. Looking at the channel partner itself, right? So you're a channel partner. Randall, maybe you can kick this off for us. What does channel partners, what are they seeing on the street?
If I look at my notes from the last mastermind that we did, the big one was recruiting, HR, retaining. People they're having a hard time to fill those seats, to feel the need. And of course, it's hard at the channel because the channel often is like you said, we should be on the bleeding edge, but sometimes we're a little bit lagging behind because there's a lot of moving parts, and some business owners don't want to gamble on something that's brand new because they just don't have the time to fully give it its due diligence and do the research. So you're either caught juggling too many balls, or you're not adding enough to make this the journey interesting. So
Randall, if you talk about the biggest challenge of from your mastermind session with these folks, right, being like hiring people because you can't fulfill the demand, doesn't that mean that there's a lot more demand than you can actually fulfill, and therefore you're in a good position? Or what does it really mean at the end of the day?
I think what's going on is a lot of people have switched professions. I think we've seen that a lot. Like the service industry is really suffering because people decided to do something else during COVID for those couple of years, and now they might not want to come back to working below minimum wage and plus tips. Anyway, tips in North America anyway. And I think some people in the tech industry have also possibly moved away. But I think as a tech company, we're normally looking with positivity to the future. So we are always thinking, yeah, we're going to grow no matter what. I think that's important. I think it's a good position to have, but we also have to be careful because we've seen companies that have way too big of an infrastructure for the clients that come in, and then they're actually making good money but also losing money. So it's a tough act. There's a balancing act there that is needed. And when the economy does these these highs and lows like a roller coaster. To kind of follow that is really hard. So you either have to have cash in the bank or some good credit, or things have to be really good in your particular industry, and you've got to make sure that you've latched on to those right products. Maybe you're already into security or digital transformation. I think those that are a little bit ahead of the curve are the ones that are doing well, and those that are trying to play catch up are trying to recruit to fill in the missing gaps, but it might be too late because those people are already happy somewhere else.
Carl, what are you seeing in the tech space? How do you see these companies, vendors, distributors, and channel partners? How are they dealing with the stuff that's happening right now?
So was that to me? Was that to me? Sorry.
Yes, Carl. Yeah.
I mean, I always try and bring it down to like street level, as it were, because obviously when you talk about the macroeconomics, you talk about the big things that are going on. This all does trickle down in the sense of the mentality and the psychology of people when they're going out on the road, when they go and sell to a company, or they're on a Zoom call with somebody, or a Teams call. It does trickle down into it, but ultimately at the moment, everybody's assessing risk, and that's crucial to their business, to their home, to their environment. They're assessing risk, and I guess if I was looking at all of this, is how do you offset that risk when you're doing your sales cycle, when you're doing discovery, when you're following up and doing support with the customer? It's always about where does the needle sit with risk, because as customers, they will be looking to you and going, what's my investment? What's, what productivity is going to give me? But the underlying thing is, at the moment with the economy and everything, is their assessment of risk. Is this going to deliver me enough based on an equation which sits over risk? It's just, and that's the thing. It's being upfront with the customers in the process of discovery and through, sales cycles, going, look, we understand the situation in the market. This is what we're going to do to try and balance that out for you. This is the type of things that we can do to help avert or minimize that risk for you. And I think being open and addressing the elephant in the room is really important. Now, when you look at vendors and you look at distributors, like always within the channel, there's always a volume target, and there's always a value target to go for. So, those more nimble distributors will see that there's an opportunity for the higher priced items, but the other ones will be still fulfilling stock orders and POs, etc., for some time to come, because they're they receive forward orders 6 to 18 months ahead. They will be looking at, okay, right, yes, we're going to see volume decline. There's going to be some volume decline, especially within the tin. But software, the way I see it, software and cloud and security and so on, these are all still very current terms. This is not something that's going to go away with a recession. If anything, people are going to double down on their risk, because if some companies bunker down, they're going to be thinking about how do they protect their business in the sense of their assets, what financing they have in place, what protection they need, because if they're going to get themselves ready for recession, they want to make sure that they don't put themselves in harm's way. So there's still, good stuff to talk about, but ultimately it boils down to that onion of unwrapping each skin of the onion and finding out the pain and the risk for that customer. And I think if the channel can do that, maintain that, we're on to a good start.
Interesting. Neil, when you talk with all these entrepreneurs and these SMBs, right? What's your sense that you're getting from them? How are they feeling, and what are they doing to prepare for this?
Well, I still, a lot of cases, the conversation I get is about consolidation. So what they're looking for is actually how can they get more and more from reducing the amount of individual products or licenses that they're holding. So historically, they can have 5 or 6 different products all doing roughly the same things. They're looking for any tool which gives them consolidation and brings everything together in one user experience. And they're doing that because at the same time as that's going on, they're looking at where do we put our staff? Like you said, if I can't get a lot of staff, where do I want them? I don't want a lot of people just buried in processing. I want to leverage my people to be obviously my strategic management level, driving the business forward, but most importantly, making sure that we get more and more of our sales guys up to speed and smoothing that client journey. Because part of that risk factor, especially when you're working with a potential new reseller or managed service provider, is I don't know you from Adam. I can do my due diligence and go, yeah, you've been trading for X number of years, you've got X amount of money in the bank, But the bottom line is, when I think of it, and I always do these things, from a sales perspective, when I buy from a company, I buy from them because the like and feel I get from them as much as anything. So I think the smart companies are the ones who can make the adaptation and change. And I would say that the difference I see in two different mindsets in the UK. So one is very much what I'd call kind of more traditional business, and they're characterised by being slow to make decisions. I think that's why I'm at a 7 and not high like Julian, because those guys I think will struggle because the cycles we're seeing economically, crash, recession, pandemic, recession, this has all happened within a space of 8 or 9 years. So we're not talking potentially of an economic cycle lasting 10 years. It's like, oh, actually, we're having the equivalent of the boom and bust every 18 months. So those traditional companies, I think, the struggle. Obviously, one of my sweet spots has always been in the developer houses. And with the developer guy, obviously, a lot of those already have got in their DNA that kind of idea of agile manifesto. And those guys, they're adapting really quickly. They're going, that's not working today. We'll do it completely different tomorrow. So that's what I'm kind of observing in those conversations.
So for the next half of this session, let's talk about what businesses can do, right? So you've got the channel, which is doing all sorts of tech things to help their companies and their customers transform digitally, right? And then you've got the businesses who also have to, spin up their own transformation, right? And navigate the problems as well in the economy and so on. So if you're putting yourself in the shoes of a channel partner, an MSP or an MSSP or a VAR, whatever you are on that spectrum, let's walk that through, right? So the sense we're getting right now when we talk to channel partners is most of them are profitable, right? A lot of them are very, very profitable, right? Because of the SaaS transformation and so on. But there are things that's actually coming into play that's putting pressure on that. Typically before you would have an evergreen program with vendors, right? You make a slice of the profits forever, and you thought, wow, that's great. So you start getting a lot of customers, you're getting a big check every month. Then all of a sudden, the game changes. The vendor gets merged with someone else, or the vendor says, no, we're going to change that program, and you've got to do a few different things. Microsoft and a few companies are actually changing the game where you have to, spin up more. It's more of your skill set. What are you bringing to the table today as opposed to what you did a year or 2 or 3 ago, right? So they want to flip somehow from evergreen into you've got to be earning that keep a little bit more, right? So even that is on the table now, right? So very, very complex for even MSPs who is struggling with their gross profit is hovering around 20-ish%, right? And they need to scale it up. But then you've got the big things like cybersecurity, AI, automation, which is the new frontier, right? So knowing a little bit of that, right? Where do you think the channel partners should be focusing on to help them and their customers to navigate this journey right now we're in?
Can I start with that one off, Julian? Because I've got a really basic line, which I think is great for everyone to build on, which is, I would say the same thing really, is make sure you're doing the basics really, really well. So the first thing I would say is go out to your sales and marketing team and say, how well are our existing customers profiled? One of the profiling questions that I always used to want to know is, how much was their annual budget for software? And if I knew that, and I knew how much they're spending, I knew how much of their business I didn't have. So the first thing I'd go is try to make sure that maximize the value of the clients we've got by being their best partner. So the key thing is we've got all these external factors in, but I think to start with, let's stick with the basics. Keep delivering what you do really well and look at how you improve that service. Upskill the technical knowledge of your sales guys. Sometimes I've worked with organizations where the sales guys are just purebred sales, but they don't know their technology. And if you talk to an IT manager or a systems admin and you pretend you know technology, your lifespan is about 30 seconds. So get that training. Yeah, if it means sitting thousands of Microsoft exams or whoever, do it. Make it part of your expectations. Because again, that I think also knocks on that if a member staff feels that you're investing in all these extra qualifications, which add value to them as individuals, you've got a better chance of getting a little bit, not a huge amount, but a little bit of extra loyalty out of them until they get offer that shiny paycheck somewhere else.
It's a good point. Getting to know your customers deeper and wider. As a matter of fact, Carl, at your organization, Quantilope, you guys are doing market research, right? I mean, if there was ever a time where you need to understand, what's going on at the customer level, it is now, because you can't guess at this, right?
Look, I touched on it when I was last with you on the masterclass. I was talking about segmentation, profiling your customer base. I would mirror what Neil just said, specifically about knowing your customer. Know your supplier as well. Microsoft have made changes because they are moving from what was the traditional Microsoft to a new Microsoft, which is all about ARR, annualized revenue. It's about sales bookings. It's about net new. Know your supplier, know how they are driven, know how they are targeted, and you make yourself relevant to them again. Okay. Know what your share of wallet is, your share of wallet of theirs is, in the sense of how big are you compared to them, in the sense of, compared to all your other competitors, where do you sit? What share do you have of that supplier? And likewise with the customer, like Neil just said, about knowing how much they're spending, what is your share of wallet? What is it? What are they spending on IT equipment? What are they spending on security and software and so on? But fundamentally, and we said this on the last call, was knowing more about yourself, knowing what you're capable of, okay, and knowing what you're not capable of. Because as Neil just said, you can't phone this stuff in, especially if we're going to go through challenging times. You cannot waste resource on sales that aren't going to, happen. So discovery is really important. Doubling down on your sales process. Making sure that you've got, if you've got the time, get an SDR team in place, get them out there setting up, prospects for you, with a marketing team or a marketing person, setting up marketing qualified leads, working on that process, sweating that system until you get it refined, because that way then you have a really efficient, almost automated sales process. And then you can then add, with collaboration, some expertise from other organizations that you work with. Nobody has a silver bullet. But if you are going after elephants and all you've got is a slingshot, I mean, it just makes no sense. And you can't afford that risk if we go the way that the analysts are saying, the economists are saying. It's really important to get it right now, because it's going to hit. And last recession, it hit 18 months after it, everybody else within the IT, hit IT 18 months later. So it's really important you double down and do your work now.
This is some really great advice, by the way, Randall, and I'll jump into you. I hope MSPs are listening up and channel partners. You need to discover, you need to know what you don't know. And the thing that kills you the most is what you don't know, all right? And, just knowing a little bit is not good enough anymore. You need to understand your customers, and you need to understand how your customers are thinking as well, because that's how you can transform these people digitally. And while you're at it, you need to also be thinking of all the supply chain of all your customers, all right? Because all these things are connected, and we won't get into the supply chain, but we've already seen how complicated that is right now. But great advice, guys. Randall,
Julian,
wrap it up.
I really want to. I want to think maybe. Sorry, Neil, you want to say?
I'll come back to you, Neil, after.
I just wanted to just really jump in quickly, just to add a little bit weight behind Carl and what I was saying about how valid that can be, with just one very story from back in the dark days when I actually used to work day to day as a sales director. I knew the vendor very well. Yeah, I did. Yeah. In the vendor that I knew very well was my guys up at Microsoft, and the client I knew really, really well was Standard Chartered Bank. I did an 8-figure deal with them because Microsoft just couldn't transact it direct in the States. It had to be done within the European office. I got that deal because of the great relationship I built with the vendor. And off the back of that, I closed that deal with Standard Chartered Bank because I had an excellent relationship with those guys. I didn't have to sell it at all. It literally was a series of emails saying, you need it. I know you need it. I know you can't buy it anywhere else apart from through us. Let's have a nice conversation about it. Do you want the invoice? And it was, yeah, thanks for sending me the invoice. Done and dusted. So the power of relationship, it takes time to build, but it's not just small things. Sometimes people think it's nickel and diming, but it can be just as applicable at very high level deals and high value deals as well.
Good point, Randall.
My point is that in North America, there's a lot of small MSPs. There's a whole lot of small MSPs. They might not have a marketing department. They might not have a sales department. And that's where what Neil kind of talked about, which is basically farming, is looking at your customers and finding out what is it that they're buying from you and what is it that they're not. And as you go out and get, my brain always works into finding a SKU, creating a SKU. For example, if I figure out, which I did, how to send encrypted emails on Office 365, I turned that into a SKU because there's a service, which is to get it activated, and then you sell the licenses. Then you sell it as a product. It's a new security add-on to your Office 365. It's not very complicated. It takes a couple hours to figure it out, maybe even less, maybe even less than an hour to set it up. But it becomes a SKU, it becomes a new product, and then you kind of farm throughout your clients who needs to send encrypted emails. Do that with subsequent problem issues and problems, solve them. That becomes a new SKU. You give that to your clients, and now you're building on your existing clients. You're adding more revenue, but you're also solving problems. To me, it can be as simple. And I've said this before. I mean, we don't all have, like I said, departments in this, but it could be as simple as an Excel sheet with check marks. Do they have a VPN? Do they have Office 365, a security protocol in place? Do they have this? Do they have that? And just kind of keep adding those SKUs, add those services, and then go down the list and try to fill in the gaps. That could really, really boost up the revenues with clients that are already there, that already trust you, that love you.
That's a great point. I mean, when we look at IT, I mean, there is no shortage of SKUs, are they? I mean, you can think about 1 million SKUs, right? You've got companies right now that they've got to solve the cybersecurity nut, all right? And I don't care how great you are, there is still, you got cybersecurity challenges, right? So you got to solve that problem. So that's a low-hanging fruit. Spin up cybersecurity, do what you got to do, get better at it, outsource it, whatever. But make sure you're delivering, top of class, right? Cybersecurity practice to your customers. They will pay for this, right? The industry's already sold them in fear, but these days it's just because it's happening every day. People understand that they got to solve this problem. I guess the second thing as well is digital transformation, right? I mean, the Canadian government has just put aside $4 billion, that's what it be, to help channel partners to become digital transformation experts, right? The program was so popular that all the major cities were like becoming, authorized, certified, if you will, that all the little small towns were not getting any, authorization, certified professionals. So they had to pull back the program a bit and say, whoa. We want everybody to share here, right? Because everybody's got to transform their business digitally, right? So governments are sort of understanding that if they're going to win this global battlefield for, let's say, consumers and profits and so on, right? They've got to make sure their businesses, right, are able to sustain a future, right? And that means some digital transformation. So there are very, very big things that all channel partners nail down right now. And these things, I believe, we are at just the very early days. It's sort of why I think it's a 9. Is because I see only potential. I see almost no, cliffs, right? I think if you stumble today as an MSP or a VAR, it's you. It's not the market. You got cybersecurity, you've got digital transformation, you've got automation everywhere. You've got AI, and AI we've seen now is being built into a lot of those technologies. But did you know that there's AI solutions available where you, me, you, and us can actually create AI using platforms to help fix problems, lots of problems, understanding our data, for example, right? There's lots of things that's happening right now. So there is so much SaaS solutions available, platforms to help you do things that you could not do before. Marketing automation platforms, marketing, research platforms, marketplaces. I mean, I just see that bucket flowing with lots of opportunity. And if the market was sort of saturated, I go, well, might not be great, but the market is not saturated. And to double click one more on this, the channel as a whole is a little bit challenged because a lot of folks are hitting that retirement age around now. they're billing, there's no succession plans, which means there's more food on the table, right, for the ones that's there. We're now seeing channel partners who are still in the business simply going to other channel partners that's about to exit the business and cutting a deal, buying the book of business as opposed to the business, right? And then sharing the revenues, moving forward with it. So there's a lot of mergers, acquisitions we're hearing about every day, right? But there's also these smaller collaborations, partner to partner, that is sort of fueling sort of an undertow. And I'll bring this up a little bit later about the new ecosystem and how all these different players are coming together to actually pour gasoline on this fire. So I don't want to say that the entire world in all the businesses are going to be doing well, but I think the channel is going to help these people become digitally transformed, and they've got a long way to go. We're nowhere close, right, to saturation point. So that's my thinking. Let's discuss about the opportunities now that is available in the channel and technology in general, and where do you think channel partners should be thinking about so they can actually get a bigger piece of that pie, or a piece of the pie? Who wants to go first?
I'd go definitely security is low-hanging fruit. There's a MDR. What a great service to resell, because if you find a partner, it's no longer your responsibility, because to invest into an MDR solution in-house is very expensive. And if they can't find the talent, how are you going to find the talent? There's already a drought. So for security especially. So I think an MDR is probably the first thing you do, because it's easy. It's a SKU, it's a product, it's a service, and it's a partnership you make if you find the right company, and then you don't worry about it. You just manage it. And I think that, to me, is a no-brainer. It's almost becoming needed by the banks. Insurance companies want to see that.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, if you don't have an MDR or something similar to this, you probably wouldn't even get insurance, right? So that's a whole another topic for another discussion. But Carl, what would you say? How should channel partners, the tech industry, be thinking about how they should be looking at the opportunities to pull themselves through this, storm we may be facing?
I guess when you're looking at the C-suite, they're all very much working to a sort of 3-year, 5-year plan that was already in place. So we're seeing them, some of them will be coming to the end of that, and they'll be then looking at the economy and thinking, okay, well, our 3-year plan or 5-year plan needs to evolve. But I think, things like automation, sustainability, cost rationalization, etc. These are all things. Fortunately, in these situations, people buy off people. So you can go in there with all the jargon and you can talk about all the terms and so on, but fundamentally they need to know that they can buy off you and that you're going to have their back. And that typically that comes from them understanding that what they're going through. And I think I said it last time. Mahatma Gandhi said, a friend is a man who walks among moccasins. Okay, so if you consider that in the sense of you are building a bond and rapport with those organizations, they're more likely to share. We always want to see what's behind the curtain. The Wizard of Oz, when doing pulling all the levers and stuff. We always want to know what's behind the curtain, and some customers won't tell us, or some prospects won't tell us, should I say. And in some cases, customers won't. So very much understanding that you are there as a partner and you're with them on their side of the boardroom. I think there is something else to talk about here, which is the different sizes of organization. And when you talk about channel partners, it's a very big term that takes into account sort of the larger enterprise as well as SME. The FD and CEO or MD or whoever it may be is talking a different language at a large enterprise level, and they are, say, for example, small organization. But fundamentally, if you're not talking to the money in that organization, which is typically the financial area of the business, if you're not talking to the money, then you're going to have problems, especially with what's coming. Your sponsor is all very well and good, but we all like yes, yummy noises. We like dealing with people who say yes, yes, yes. Challenge yourself and go and speak to the people that say no in that organization. And if you're not the right person, look around in your business and go and have a look and see who is. But I guess, when you look at it, it's a one size doesn't fit all, in the sense of you've got to change that. And automation marketing automation, sales automation, all of those types of things, they're there. And as you said, Julian, if you're not successful now with all the tools that are available to you, then it's probably a you thing rather than an institute thing. But I think as far as those channels are concerned, and the different stakeholders within it, the size of the organization, let's get back to basics. Let's get this right on the basics, because when you're challenged, people start losing their head. It needs to be muscle memory within their business. What am I here to do? What's the vision? What's the strategy? What's the tactics? Allow some time and resource for the innovative stuff, because you don't want to be all looking all that way, then miss something, go past you. But, if it's not about the vision, it's not about the strategy and the tactics, then what are you doing? How am I paying for my seat sat right here? How are the people in the business paying for their seat right there? But automate where you can. But again, it's just getting the basics right. And especially in this environment, you're going to be under pressure and you could lose your head.
Always be building relationships and always be learning. Neil, basics, you talked about the basics. I mean, it's so funny because as the world gets complicated, simplicity is what we really need. It's almost like we made our world more complicated to realize, oh no, that's not what we want. We want simplicity. A perfect example of this, by the way, is this security, IT security. It used to be the train of thought, let's just keep adding layers and layers and layers and layers of security, right? Some companies have built up over 80 layers of technology stacks to protect their business. Meanwhile, several of these things, their dashboards are not being monitored anymore. So therefore, the company is actually more vulnerable, even though they have every single thing under the sun. So simplicity, integration, better manage is easier, not to mention the fact these cybersecurity experts have to look at umpteen TV screens and decipher what these things mean. Now, I know they're good, all right? But darn, can you imagine doing this every day? At some point, you're going to say, I need to drink and smoke something because this is becoming a little bit too heavy, all right? I mean, burnout. We hear, the health people are burnt out every day. The tech people are burnt out every day, because when you get into this position where you just got to keep grinding and grinding every day, at some point there's a breaking point, isn't there? So, what's your thoughts, Neil? How do you see it right now?
Well, I think there's a couple of things there, Julian. First of all, I want to pick up on Carl was talking about having that client comment, the vision, that strategy, the tactics. Mm-hmm. So if there are any MSPs watching and they are still struggling to get their head around that, then actually come to the Channel Partnership Alliance platform, because it's got all those things in it. So they can use that. So we can help with that straight away. The other thing I'd say is, it is do the basics, keep it simple. A great way to do that is use where the passion sits within your team. You normally find that there's one guy in your organization who's obsessed with Bing licensing. Let him be the Bing expert license. Yeah, that's great. Another guy wants to wave the torch for security. Let that guy, empower them. Finance for them to do training to become your evangelist on those areas, because that one expert in the team gives everyone in the team confidence to close their deals, because they don't have to go online or speak to a vendor in the first case to get basic information, which most of them are too lazy to do. They can get it from the guy who's a champion. The prime example is something Junior's just about with the layers and layers of security. If you just sold them this brilliant security system, then what I'd be saying to them is, hey guys, the only thing is you need to make sure it works, don't you? Brilliant add-on. Penetration testing as a service. It's another service on the top we can wrap around security. It's like, once per year or once per quarter, we will have your system hacked and we will let you know where your weakness is. And if they find anything, it's another sales opportunity. So simple, evangelist, and look at we layer. So kind of the other way. Carl talked about peeling back the layers of the onion, but with security, let's put another one over the top. Penetration testing as a service.
Maybe my point about simplicity is, as in the channels, channel partners and MSPs, it's our job to simplify the new technologies so that the business owners, the stakeholders, understand what it is. They hear the acronyms, they hear AI, robotic process automation. They have no clue what it means because it's just words. I think our job is to simplify and really find a use case scenario. Listen, if like MDR, it's like, your doors are locked, but your windows are open. So we are hiring somebody who's going to walk around your building like a guard and test things all the time and report when there's an issue. we really have to simplify things. I think it's one of the biggest jobs that we do, and it needs to be done even more because there's a lot, and they don't understand what they need because they don't understand what it is.
Totally. Randall, you mentioned once, you said the most famous subject line was, I think you're not alone.
Yeah.
Did I remember right? So in a subject line in an email, you're not alone, and apparently everybody opens it when you say this. Hackers don't forget I just said that. But reality is that you are not alone. All right, like no one is living through this in unique, right? Everybody is together, right, in this boat, right? And if there was ever a case to hang out with your peers and join some other people to kind of figure this stuff together, it's probably now. All right, and find out what they're doing. Find out what other MSPs are doing, what other channel partners are doing. Get to know your vendors, right? Understand where they're going because you don't want to be left behind, all right? You don't want to be yesterday's news, all right? We have a little saying here that, best practice of yesterday does not mean best practice of today, all right? So you constantly have to be, looking at yourself, looking at your business, looking at the economy, looking at your customers, and figuring out, what do I don't know, and how do I bring something that's new, innovative, and interesting, but not too crazy pie in the sky stuff, right? Stuff that it's going to move the needle consistently, and I think that's what the community, if you will, needs to do if they're going to help them and their channel, their customers navigate this crazy stuff. I want to double click on something that we talked a bit earlier about vendors, looking at the vendor side of things. So everybody's got suppliers. Every channel partner's got umpteen suppliers, 50 plus probably. How important is it to go a little bit deeper into synchronizing what you do with what the vendors are doing in today's economy? You just can't sell stuff blindly because you've got an order. You got to understand a little bit more. Carl, how's the supply chain fitting in to making you a better business?
I mean, the fact of the matter is, the channel, as far as, there are always issues, but the channel is so empowering now compared to what it was 10, 15, even 5 years ago. I mean, look, if you look at the outreach of vendors and the outreach of distribution, okay, that they help you with that sale. The vendors helping you, they're sat there with you in the room, either on a call, a voice chat call, or in the room with you at the meeting. The distributors there as well, in the sense of giving you the ability to do it. Obviously, yes, there's that paranoia about where that business is going to go afterwards once you win it. But the fact of the matter is that the empowerment and channel enablement that's going on at the moment is second to none. And some of you might know I'm a judge for the CRN Awards in the UK, Channel Awards, and I sit on the head judge for distribution. And I get the wonderful pleasure of seeing the entries every year about what distribution does for its clients in the sense of enablement. Now, you take that and then you look at what the vendors are doing. It is a complex sale. I mean, there's no denying it now. It's not just a PCI graphics card anymore. You have got so much more around it. There's so many contingencies, compatibilities, stress testing. There is a lot more to it. But the vendors are there and enabling you to help and sell that product. Distribution is there. And the point that Randall was saying about, and you're not alone, there's industry bodies that are there to help you. So right now, and look, let's be honest, there's 4 middle-aged white guys sat on this call right now. Okay, we are the poster children of not asking for help. Because we, ego, whatever it may be, we, typically a man who sits at the head of a business will not look to get assistance or help. But there are communities out there knocking on the door, waiting to help. But the vendors, it's just a question of asking. I mean, we don't know what we don't know. But if you don't engage, you will never know. And that's the challenge. If you haven't got time and resource within your business to engage with those vendor suppliers, it's going to do is it's going to trickle down to your sales cycle towards the end, because all your credibility, reliability, all the trust that you build up during the sales is going to fall apart at the end because you didn't do the homework. You didn't do the work. The vendor wasn't there with you, challenging you and challenging that sale. So, and challenging is a really important point in this as well, is the fact that don't be afraid to have people challenging your process, whether it be through distribution with vendor as an MSP. Give people the power to challenge things, not in a critical way. I mean, if you look at the Formula One race teams, okay, they pull apart any mistake in their business, okay, because mistakes mean seconds or milliseconds. They pull it apart, not because they're singling out a team or a supplier saying you're rubbish or anything. They're saying, look, let's do this together, let's pull it apart and then reshape it into something that's brilliant. But vendors are there. They are trying to help. Distribution is there and trying to help.
You know, just to, you know, prove that point beyond any reasonable doubt, you know, me being the publisher of eChannel News and interviewing literally thousands of these vendors and distributors literally every day, it's insane how much work they're prepared to do to help channel partners and themselves succeed. So you just have to ask, right? There's a massive amount of resources that these companies are prepared to do. They'll buddy call up with you. They'll give you training, certification. They'll actually help you write the proposals. They'll help you spin it up. You know, there's a lot of things that these companies are prepared to do to help you, you know, win that deal. And yes, they've got deal registrations, and yet there's some challenges here and there, whatever. But by far, right, the support outweighs, you know, the negative side of things. So without a doubt, that's a massive resource. We've got just a few minutes left, and I just wanted to wrap it up again quickly about what everybody thinks about that number should be, the scale of 1 to 10 now after the event, and wrap it up with your last comment. I'll start with you, Randall, and go around the clock.
I think I'm going to stick with my original number. And I think right now, if I'm about to climb Everest, I'm going to take the time now to make sure I have all the tools to really take a step back and make sure that I'm ready for the challenge. I think every MSP, every channel member needs to take a step back right now, make sure they have all the tools ready for this next challenge that's coming. We don't know how it's going to look exactly, but we know it's going to be a little bit harder than what we've experienced already. So find out what's in your pack. Make sure you have everything you need.
Prepare for the best, plan for the worst. There you go. Neil, what's your number? Have you changed?
Oh, I've changed. I'm far less optimistic now. I'm going to drop 1 point. So I'm going to catch up with Randall there. And my logic is actually because there's such a big challenge out there, and being kind of glass half full, I see opportunities. So tonight, hopefully what viewers have got this evening is that sense of, actually there are lots of challenges, but none of them are insurmountable. We had a comment in there from Wayne in the comment asking about whether penetration testing as a service can be offered by MSPs. In lots of cases, directly by themselves, it's not going to happen. But actually, there's lots of great partners out there who deliver those services. But the key thing is, if you are the face of that introduction and you own that relationship, it will strengthen your ability to sell into other products and services. So partnerships are always a way to go forward. So yeah, I'm dropping by 1 point, just increasing my pessimism level.
Going downwards. All right, Carl, where are you? Up or down?
I'm going to go up. I'm going to go up. I'm going to go up. I'm going to go up to 8, and the reason being is because where others will have issue, others will succeed. If you are right and you're set and you know your business and you work on your business, not just inside your business, if you know what you're capable of, you know the supply team, you know your team around you, and then you collaborate in the areas you don't, I think is a beautiful opportunity. We have issues of supply chain, we have issues of inflation and so on, but it just means that every deal based on percentage margins is going to make a little bit more money. There won't necessarily be as many of them, but they'll be making a bit more money. I just think if we get back to basics and work on the nub of the issue, which is process, whether it be through automation, acceleration, etc., I think there's a potential bright future. So I'm going to go positive. I'm going to go 8.
So we've got to remain, we've got to decrease, we have to increase. I'm sticking with my 9, and because I think the potential is massive, bigger than we can all imagine. And the really big reason why I think it's always going to be a 9 is there's so much brain power in the channel and the technology sector. I'm amazed that I'm part of this community with all these smart people that I get to talk to and interview every day. And I will tell you that the collective brains that is in the technology community, I mean, going to the moon and back is easy stuff. They can figure this out. We got this. This industry got this. Collaborate with each other. It's going to be bigger than you can imagine. And I just want to leave with a little note. The ecosystem is changing for partners. And in this ecosystem, there's a lot of other players. There's digital marketing agencies, there are accounting companies, there's digital, transformation experts. There's a lot of different players. SaaS companies, over 200,000 of them. That's another brain pool merging into the economy, right? Understand how the dynamics of these things work. Find the synergies, collaborate with these people, and you shall see an amazing ways to kind of grow your business. Well, I mean, we could probably talk about the subject forever. I want to thank all of you again for beautifully contributing today. Randall, thank you very much. Neil and Carl, all the best. It's been great. Cheers,
you all.
everybody. If you want to learn more, subscribe and join the Channel Partner Alliance. Here we go.